Alright, so here we are with the 4-2 assignment video. The first thing here is to find the values of all 6 trig functions. So we have to go back to remembering that sine is a trig function and then get its ratio. We also have cosine, tangent, and then, oops, that's a really bad way of writing tangent. And then we have all of their reciprocals, the flip. So we have 1 over sine, which is cosecant, and then 1 over cosine, which is going to be secant, and then cotangent, which is 1 over tangent. And so we need to go through, and we're standing here, so that means that this is the opposite side, this is the adjacent side, and this is the hypotenuse. And so if we're going to find our sine, sine is opposite over hypotenuse, so 12 over 13. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, and tangent is opposite over adjacent. And once you have each of those, then you can go ahead and flip all of them, and that's going to be your inverse, not inverse, reciprocal. Alright. Then we have our next one, and same idea, you still need sine, cosine, tangent, and then cosecant, secant, and cotangent. And so, if this is where we're standing, this is the opposite side, hypotenuse is here, across from the 90 degrees, and adjacent is here. And so sine as opposite over hypotenuse is going to be 8 over 17. Cosine is going to be 15 over 17. And tangent is going to be 8 over 15, opposite over adjacent. And of course we're getting that from SOHCAHTOA. Cosecant is the flip of sine, so 17 over 8. Secant is the flip of cosine, so 17 over 15. And cotangent is the flip of tangent, so 15 over 8. Alright, then we move on. We're assuming that theta is an acute angle in a right triangle, and we're going to satisfy the given conditions and evaluate the remaining trig functions. So, we are given that sine of theta is 2/3. So if we are having our theta there, sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So that means that our opposite side, which is over here, is going to be 2, and our hypotenuse side, which is 3, is going to be there. And so we need to find the adjacent side so that we can figure out what our ratios are going to be. So how do we find that third side? That's Pythagorean Theorem. So we have a squared plus b squared equals c squared. C is going to be the hypotenuse, so that's 3. And then a and b are the legs. So a could be 2, and b is the one we don't know. So we have 4 plus b squared equals 9. Go ahead and subtract our 4. And we're left with b squared is 5, so the square root of 5 is our b. So it does say the remaining trig functions. So I would assume that would just mean the sine, cosine, tangent, but it actually means all of them, so. And we'll just keep going here. Alright, so if sine is given to us as 2/3, cosecant is 3/2. We'll just do that right away. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, and we've said that adjacent is the square root of 5. And so that'll be over 3, our hypotenuse, and then we can hop down to secant and fill that one in as the flip. And then tangent is going to be opposite over adjacent, so we've got 2 over the square root of 5, and then of course the flip of that down here, so square root of 5 over 2. Alright, in number 11, same setup. We're going to set up the fact that we have some sort of, one of the acute angles is theta, doesn't matter which one. And since we're talking about cosine, we're doing adjacent over hypotenuse. So our adjacent side is 5 and our hypotenuse is 11, and we need to find our missing side. So to find our missing side, we're going to go ahead and do the Pythagorean Theorem. So C is 11 for the hypotenuse. 5 can be our one leg, and B is our missing leg. So we have 25 and 121. Once we square, subtract out a 25 and you get 96. And the square root of 96 isn't anything special, so we're just going to keep it as the square root of 96 as our opposite side. Alright, so then we will do all of our pieces here. So sine, cosine, tangent, cosecant, secant, and cotangent. So sine is, cosine is 5/11ths, and so therefore secant is 11/5. Then we have sine, which is supposed to be opposite over hypotenuse, so square root of 96 over 11. Tangent is opposite over adjacent, so square root of 96 over 5. Cosecant is the flip of sine, so 11 over 96, and cotangent is the flip of tangent, so 5 over square root of 96. You'll notice in the answer key that they have the square root of 96 written as 4 over the square root of 6. I'm sorry, 4 square roots of 6. If you wanted to, you could take 96 and divide it by 16 and end up with 16 times 6. And then that's where you get your 4 from the square root of 16. But you do not necessarily have to continue to, simplify if you don't feel like it. Usually it won't change it. And of course the only way that you're really going to compare that then would be in the answer key. So just knowing that 96 comes from 16 times 6, or even just checking your decimals, you could get the decimal of 96 and the decimal of 4 square roots of 6 and see that they're the same. Alright, the next one we're going to evaluate without using a calculator, which means that we are going to use our unit circle here. So taking a look at what they're asking for, they want sine. Remember that in our coordinates, cosine is the x value and sine is the y value. And so if we want sine, that means that we want the y value when it comes to pi over 3. So going to pi over 3, and we want the y value, so square root of 3 over 2. Of course, your calculator is not going to give you that. They're going to give you the decimal that is equal to the square root of 3 over 2. So I guess if you have those memorized, you can just do it that way. But the best thing, of course, is to be able to use the unit circle. So the next one is cotangent, which is going to be a little difficult. Cotangent is cosine over sine. And so that means that we need cosine of pi over 6 over sine of pi over 6. So let's see, cosine of pi over 6 is going to be square root of 3 over 2. And then sine of pi over 6 is a half. Notice that they're both divided by 2, so we can actually take that out and just have the square root of 3 over 1. It happens from making this into keep, change, or multiply by the reciprocal kind of ideas where those two would cancel. So if you wanted to know how I got there a little bit faster. Alright, then we have cosine of pi over 4. Remember, cosine is the x value, so going to pi over 4, x value is square root of 2 over 2. Alright, now we want tangent, and tangent is sine over cosine. So we're going to do sine, or the y value, over the x value of pi over 4. Yeah. So pi over 4, oh, that's interesting because they're the same. And so that just means it's going to be 1. Same thing over the same thing. Then we have secant, and remember that secant is going to be 1 over cosine. So we're really looking for the x value of pi over 3. So x value of pi over 3 is a half, but then we have to flip it. So we're saying that this is 1 over a half, which is just going to be 2 then. And then 1 over sine is happening with pi over 3 here. So sine of pi over 3 is a half again. And so that means that it's 1 over a half, and so that's also 2. Wait, pi over 3 y value is square root of 3 over 2. Hi. So it's 1 over the square root of 3 over 2, which just means we'll flip that, so it's 2 square roots of 3. Sorry about that. Alright, then moving on, they want you to evaluate using a calculator, and of course we want to be in the correct mode. Well, since all of these are degrees, you want to be in degree mode for those two, but then since these don't say degrees, they're assumed to be radians. So we want to be in radian mode for number 37 and 38, and degree mode for 35 and 36. So let's see, I'm in degree mode, so I get to do secant of 49. We don't have secant, so I actually have to type 1 over cosine of 49 degrees. And 1 over cosine of 49 degrees is 1.5243. It says 3 decimal places. So 1.524. Alright, moving on to the other degree one, it says cosecant, so we want 1 over sine of 19 degrees. So 1 divided by sine of 19 to 3 decimal places is 3.072. Alright, then we have radians, so now we go to mode and change to radian. And cotangent is going to be 1 over tangent. So 1 over tangent of 0.89. 1 divided by tangent of 0.89 is going to be 0.810, because the 9 makes the other 9 round to a 10. So 0.810. And then secant is 1 over cosine. So again in radian mode, 1 over cosine of 1.24. To 3 decimals is 0.325, with that 7 rounding us up. Alright, then they want you to find the acute angle that satisfies the given equation. So basically they're saying, they want it in both degrees and radians. Well, cool, that's why we have the unit circle. So basically they're saying the y value is a half in number 41. So if we want the y value as a half, taking a look at what we have, that's here, but it's also here. And so that's kind of interesting because it can actually get you 2 answers, which is fine, so we will write them both down. So we have pi over 6 and 5 pi over 6 for number 41. And then we also have their degree measures, so 30 and 150. So, one thing that I just want to be clear on with this one is that it is, what does it say? You should do these problems, satisfy. Oh, it says acute angle. Hi! Acute angle is not these ones. 150 degrees is definitely not acute. So we are trying on the unit circle then to stay on this half. So that'll be a little easier to figure out. Alright. So the next one, again, is sine, and so we want the y value of the square root of 3 over 2. So going to that half of the chart, y value of square root of 3 over 2 is that one, and that's it. Oh, so what was it? Pi over 3 or 60 degrees. You'll also notice that I do my degree symbol as just a dot, because basically on this, if I try to make it into a 0, it starts to look like 600 or something, so let's not do that. Alright. Then cotangent is going to be 1 over tangent, and so we're actually looking for tangent of the square root of 3. We know that tangent is sine over cosine, so we're 1 over, okay, sine over cosine, so cosine, oh, that's not what I was saying, cosine and sine, meaning we want cosine of 1 and sine of square root of 3. But the reason that we don't see what we need is that they were both technically divided by 2, most likely, since that's the only options we have. So we want an x value of a half and a sine of square root of 3 over 2. So that's this one. Pi over 3 and 60. So tangent tends to be a little bit more confusing, but as we saw when we were simplifying before, anytime that you have that division by 2, we simplify it. So if we're going backwards, which we are, we're going to want to throw that back in. And then cosine, remember that's your x value, and so we want an x value of square root of 2 over 2. So that's this one. Technically it's this one as well. Why is this rotated to the side? I just noticed that this doesn't go counterclockwise. That's annoying. Okay. So on that note, we actually were looking for answers within this chart. So that would mean, of course, that we to 90 degrees. We wanted acute angles. Yes, we were just trying to hang out in here. Okay. Whatever. I was hanging out in there anyway. Alright, so we were on this piece. The x value of square root of 2 over 2. There it is. Pi over 4 / 45 degrees. Alright, so I was a little off my game when I was looking at acute angle, because I thought that was less than 180, but it's actually less than 90. So we're just in quadrant 1. Also, I'm going to change our formula sheet to use a unit circle that actually goes in the correct order, which would be that 90 degrees would be over here, and not, yeah, this is so weird. Okay. All the answers are there, it's just oriented really weird. Okay. Alrighty. And then our last one here, we're going to solve for the variable. Okay. So this is going back to our old school trig knowledge. So if we have this one here, and we're given the opposite side, and we want to find the hypotenuse, that means that we're going to use the SOHCAHTOA that uses O and H, which is sine. So sine of 34 is what we have, and that's equal to our opposite over our hypotenuse. If we set that up as a proportion, we're going to do 15 times 1, and that divided by sine of 34. Make sure you're in degree mode. So 15 divided by degree mode, sine of 34. And doesn't say anything about rounding, so we'll just do 26.82 for our x value. Set up the next one almost the same, only now if this is the angle we're looking at, this is the adjacent side and hypotenuse. So that means we're doing cosine of 39 equals 23 over z. Again, setting it up as a proportion means that 23 will be multiplied by 1, and all of that will be divided by 39 in a cosine. And so 23 divided by cosine of 39 in degree mode is 29.60. And then our last one has our opposite side and adjacent. So now we're talking about tangent, of course. So tangent of 57 is going to equal 32 over y. And if we multiply across 32 times 1 and then divide by the tangent of 37 degrees, we'll get our y. So in degree mode, 32 divided by tangent of 37 is 42.47. There it is. Oops. All right. So again, I'll change that formula sheet so that we have that better one from our notes. So that is 4-2 assignment.